everybody. Welcome to the Flash Focus Tier List series. This is Deej. With me is my brother Smokey. How are you, my man?
I'm doing well. What's up, Deej?
So today we're going to talk about the reinstatement of banned players such as Pete Rose and the Black Sox. So let's jump right in and I have here the 8 men out from the 1919 White Sox, and we'll just go through them alphabetically. All right, so first up we got Eddie Seacott. They called him Knuckles. So Eddie was quite a good pitcher. He had a 12 WAR season there in 1917, another one in a 10 WAR season in 1919. He had 58 WAR, 4.6 per 162. That's stepping right up to a Hall of Fame caliber season, career rather. ERA plus 123. That is pretty good. Yeah, like 4 Hall of Fame caliber season. It's on the light side, honestly. He did have that great peak. But I think he definitely would have gotten very strong Hall of Fame consideration had he not been banned for his participation in the Black Sox scandal. But I don't know. What do you think about Eddie Seacott?
Yeah, I mean, unlike some of the other guys, he was a little older when he got banned. He was in his mid to late 30s. I think he was about 36. So he was still pitching well. So he probably had a few more seasons of above average pitching. I would think if he was going to get in, he wasn't one of the guys that people looked at and are like, oh, he definitely didn't throw that World Series. So he kind of got that negative stink on him. I would say like probably a C tier.
Yeah, I mean, he did pitch well in the 1919 World Series. He had a 291 ERA in his 3 starts, but he was found to have accepted the money, so out he goes. Yeah, I mean, I think he could have topped out as a C tier Hall of Famer had he gotten the chance. All right, next up we got Happy Felsch. Happy was a center fielder for the Black Sox, so he was actually pretty good too. He had 4.2 WAR per 162. He got banned at age 29. I doubt he was on a Hall of Fame trajectory, but a center fielder with a 123 OPS plus, he was decent. I don't know. I don't think he was considered like a future Hall of Famer though. He didn't have a whole lot of playing time either. But who knows? He had 3-4 WAR seasons already, so pretty much anything could happen. But I don't know. I think I can stick him down in the E tier, but like because he wasn't a heck no, but pretty close to it. I don't know. Any words on Happy?
Yeah, that's about right. I think E tier. It's not absolutely not, but he got cut down in his prime. You just don't know. You don't know how that would have panned out.
Who knows? Who knows? All right, next up we got first baseman Chick Gandil. He's an austere-looking fellow. Chick, also a decent player, but yeah, that 2.7 per 162. Yeah, not Hall of Fame trajectory at all. Certainly a good player, but first baseman with an average OPS plus, he wasn't anything. I don't know. Like obvious F tier. He did have a couple decent seasons, but he was on the wrong side of 30 and never put anything up. Any words on Chick?
F tier. I agree.
Yeah, no chance. No chance. All right, next up, the man of the hour, Shoeless Joe Jackson. So, Shoeless Joe had 62 WAR, and he was banned at age 32. He was putting up 7.6 per 162. That is about as good as it gets. Like I think that's up in like Hank Aaron territory. He's either an A or S tier on the merits of his playing career. Interestingly, he never won a batting title, even though he hit 356 for his career. He's actually surprisingly light on the black ink, but yeah, everything is there. 170 OPS plus. Probably on pace for 3,000 hits. Yeah, I mean, I think he would have. I think I can put him in A tier. Not sure I can quite put him in S tier. as a player, not as a human being, of course. But what do you think about Shoeless Joe? A, S, lower?
So here's one that I think he was done wrong. He hit really well in the World Series. He disputed it to his dying day. I think he hit like 375 in the World Series. And the movie 8 Men Out, it painted him in a positive light, and I'm inclined to believe him. And that way over 400 on base percentage for his career, that batting average over 350, and he was starting to hit more home runs when he was banned, and he was leading the league in triples, and I think he probably had another 7 or 8 seasons in him where he's just way above average. I would put him in S tier. I think he was done completely wrong.
Yeah, I read a pretty convincing narrative where they broke down his batting game logs and showed that. So first of all, the White Sox weren't throwing every game; they were just only throwing certain games. And I don't have all that info in front of me, but there's some really good articles written on it. So just Google like Shoeless Joe, breakdown of World Series. But as I read, Game 1 was definitely thrown, and he threw it. And then Game 8, remember back then it was best of 9. He did go 2 for 5, but it was a 10. They were losing 9-1 in the 7th or something, and then he added some meaningless RBIs late in the game when they were already down big. And apparently he hit poorly in the games they meant to throw, and hit well in the non-thrown games. And I think if you look at these, the 3 wins versus the losses, I think they meant to throw Game 1, 4, 5, and then the last one or something. And he hit poorly in the games that they conspired to throw. And then the whole poor me, I'm just a country bumpkin who can't read, and the other mean men made me do it. Apparently that was made up by his attorneys, and there's some evidence that it was exaggerated, but we'll never know. He died 50 plus years ago, way more than 50. But yeah, I mean, the only moral of the story is stay away from lowlives and gamblers, because you will never come out looking good. Any final words on Shoeless Joe?
I mean, those are all convincing arguments. How do you hit 375 and throw a World Series? Sometimes you have bad games.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing is Shoeless Joe, he was the left fielder, and he supposedly played out of position. He'd shift to the right side with known pull hitters, and there were 3 triples hit to left field. Smokey, when's the last time you saw someone triple to left? It doesn't happen. So he didn't make any quote unquote errors, but he allowed 3 triples to be hit to left field. That's just not a thing. He was playing out of position, and he was going out of his way to like sorry not sorry errors. Anyway, I wasn't there, but this is a fairly convincing narrative that I did read, showing that he cleverly avoided being caught throwing the game. Anyway, we'll never know, but there's some convincing arguments both ways. All right, next up, we got Fred McMullen, the third baseman. Fred, 3 career WAR. He's 28. Yeah, he's a nothing burger. He's the utility guy, probably. We'll just stick him right in F tier.
I agree.
Fred. Up next, Swede Risberg. Swede, I believe, was the brains of the operation. So this was, the real guy that you're. And hey, he sucked. He was a shortstop. He had 3 WAR. He couldn't hit 250, which is all they cared about back then. No power. Terrible defensive shortstop. So yeah, this guy probably was never gonna be anything in his career, so he saw fit to throw the series. So he's F tier as it comes.
Is there a tier below F?
Yeah.
Can we stick him in there? He blows.
Yeah, let's make a Z tier for Swede.
There we go.
Next up we got Buck Weaver. Buck, he looks like a happy guy. Maybe he should have been called Happy and not Mr. Filch. right, so Buck was a pretty solidly average player. Slightly below average hitter, but yeah, average fielder. Yeah, I don't know. Just kind of straight up and down average player was Buck Weaver. We'll stick him down there in the F tier. Certainly not a candidate in any way. All right. And up next, we got Claude Lefty Williams. So Lefty Williams was the Game 1 starting pitcher. He indeed was a left-handed thrower. Very good nickname for Claude. So Claude had a couple good seasons there toward the end. He was a younger guy, 27 when he got banned. He, was an ERA plus, average, but on the rise. He scuffled a little bit early in his career, perhaps, but was on his way to being a much better player. And in the series, he had a 6.61 ERA and went 0-3. Yeah, so this guy definitely just blew all his games. He sucked on purpose. He sucked for fun. I don't know. Maybe he could have been on his way to a... Nah, he was... I think he just had one good season. How did he have 3.5 WAR when he led the league in earned runs and home runs? That's kind of weird. Not sure. And that was a very high FIP for the time. ERA plus below average with a worse... Well, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, this guy's F tier. He doesn't have any Hall of Fame case whatsoever. And he was the absolute, him and Swede Risberg are definitely the two, screw you, guys, out of the 8 if you had to pick anyone, because they were, blatantly throwing it and or in charge in Risberg's case. All right, so that about does it for the 8 men out. I think it looks like Shoeless Joe and Eddie C. Cotthead were, surefire on their way to the Hall of Fame, and then, a couple... no-namers, and then, this one guy, not gonna lie, I forgot which one this is. He, it's probably Happy Felsch. Yeah, Happy Felsch, the center fielder. He maybe had a shot if he'd straight on the straight and narrow. All right, now let's dig into Pete Rose. So, lots of pros for Pete Rose. So, yeah, the MVP and the Rookie of the Year, 17 All-Star games, won 3 rings, even won a couple Gold Gloves, 3 batting titles. He was the hit king. He has the most hits ever. He has the most games played ever. Has the most plate appearances ever. Now, it's tempting to just put him in S tier because of his hits, but on a rate stat, he wasn't that great. Look, only 3.6 WAR per 162. Only 80 WAR on his career. He wasn't that good. He was very good at hitting singles and doubles. He hit a lot of doubles. He led the league in doubles, but his he didn't really contribute defensively. He was rated as a really bad fielder. But here's the main thing about Pete Rose. He should have retired at 38. Look at his WAR down here. He was good. He had several 6, 7, 8 WAR seasons. He cracked 6 only 4 times. He, no doubt Hall of Famer, but not close to S tier. He just didn't have the crazy WAR seasons you need out of an S tier. And look at this. When he was 38, he had a 3 WAR season. He played another, 7 seasons? He was negative 3 or 4 times. He had 1.7, and he never even cracked 1 after that. It's look what he did from age 39 to 45. Negative 0.2 WAR over 7 seasons. Below average. He was mostly playing first base. So if he had just retired at age 38... he could have had, 3,400 hits, been 7th or 8th on the list, gotten into the Hall of Fame very easily with an 80 WAR, but he just insisted on hanging on to become the hit king at the expense of, his rate stats. And, 118 OPS plus. He didn't play shortstop or center field. He wasn't, a defensive dynamo in any way. I can't rate him. He might even be a B tier, surprisingly, as a hit king, but I don't know, he's A or B to me. What do you think about Pete Rose?
He's a tough one. He kind of reminds me of Lou Block a little bit. He's got the legend. He's got the This guy steals bases, gets dirty, like the photos of him are, hair flowing, sliding head first in the bases, and just a real gamer. And then you take a look at his WAR, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Look at
Like,
his
why is he only at 80?
Look at his steals. 200 steals, 150 caught stealing. That is a terrible stolen base percentage. He was not a good base stealer either.
Yeah, I mean, kind of shocking, right?
Right.
Like you have this image of Pete Rose in your head, and when you dig down deep, B tier feels right before you get into the personal stuff.
Yeah. He hung on as a compiler just to be the hit king. And he just absolutely just sandbagged everything else just in the name of that. And those are very real games the Cincinnati Reds and Phillies, and I guess he was an Expo briefly, were losing because he insisted on hanging on when he should have retired, when he was no longer a major league caliber hitter. I think if he retires at 38, he's probably an S tier, but I think playing those final 7 horrible seasons, I think those drag him down to B tier overall as a player, and I'm not even digging into his personality or his managerial career.
Yeah, and wasn't he the manager in 1990?
He was a player manager. I think he got popped in '89. Let's look at his manager. Let's see how he was as a manager. Yeah, '89. He got popped mid-year '89. So he only actually managed. I think he was gone for a while in the middle in '88 too. Yeah, he only managed 3 full seasons. 184.
So he wasn't the manager when the Red won the 1990 World Series.
Right, that was Lou Piniella, I believe.
Ah.
So he doesn't have that ring either. Yeah, and this is when he was betting on his team, but like when you bet on one game, that means the games you don't bet on, you might like overuse a relief pitcher or leave a starting pitcher in too long or otherwise just use guys who the baseball season's a marathon. You gotta pace yourself, and when you're betting on individual games, you're treating it like a sprint. And when you bet on one game and you don't bet on another game, that's really sending a message like, hey, maybe bet against me in these games that I'm not betting on. So only betting on your team it's not that great. It just isn't. And again, remember that Pete Rose admitted that he bet on his own team, and then the guy that was running the investigation, John Dowd, said, if you just sign this agreement to be banned, we won't dig into whether you bet against your own team. So it was not proven he didn't bet against his own team. They just had enough to ban him for life, and then said, all right, man, we got you popped. If you just sign this, then we won't dig in any further. And he signed it. He had more to hide. So, Pete Rose, the whole apology for his, he bet on his own team, that's not good. That's not okay. That's not a mitigating factor. I don't know. What do you think about Pete Rose?
Before you get into everything else, like the gambling on your own team, for the record, I agree 100%. Like, I think he bet on anything and everything. When you think about gamblers and you think about, I don't want to say degenerate gamblers, but it's an illness.
Yeah.
They can't help themselves. I have no doubt in my mind that, he, changed things around and he, didn't do things the right way so that he could maybe win those games where he bet on his team. And, the insinuation that he, maybe bet against his team, that's really bad. I mean, that's what a lot of people hang their hat on. I wish they would do a full investigation. I wish they did do a full investigation. And a lot of the sports writers, the vote's coming up in 2027, the Veterans Committee, whether to let him in or not, a lot of them are still alive. A lot of them remember who he was and what he did and what their opinions are of him. And he is not a likable guy. He just isn't.
No,
He is not a good person on a lot of levels, and he got banned from announcing.
yeah,
And
he's
the insinuation is he slept with a 14-year-old. I mean,
he admitted
you know
it.
that's an F tier human being.
Yep.
I my final answer. I think he belongs in the hall. I think as a D tier, as in David.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, this isn't an argument about his batting. Obviously, he's a Hall of Fame hitter, player. There's no argument about that. The argument is that that doesn't matter because he just because of all the other stuff, like that. He didn't respect the game, and he disrespected it in a way that should get you banned for all of eternity. And he wasn't banned for life. He was banned permanently. That means beyond life, death, and the afterlife. And like honestly, this whole just reinstating all these people is just like it just stinks of like approving of degenerate behavior, like of like just sanctioning and normalizing gambling and just being an awful human and I hate it. And I don't know if you're a hockey fan out there, but a couple years ago there was a guy who was in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I forget his name. He was in as an agent or something. He did some really messed up stuff, and several prominent. They were pressuring this guy to resign from the Hall of Fame, which has never happened in baseball. And several prominent players threatened, like big ones that you've heard of, like like Bobby Orr, Bobby Hull, Rocket Richard, Johnny Bowen, just off the top of my head, like big names, threatened to resign from the Hall of Fame if they didn't kick this guy out. So the guy eventually resigned from the Hall of Fame. But like, anyway, point being, I could see many current Hall of Famers threatening to resign from the Hall of Fame. Definitely, if Pete Rose gets in, Shoeless Joe seems like more of a squishy debate. He's more of a historical figure than anything. But specifically, Pete Rose, that could create a situation where you see some seriously big names in the Hall of Fame threatening to resign if they do it. And all I can say is I just hope that like nobody on the voting committee takes the bait, and this is all just a freaking black mark on Rob Manfred. Just horrible decision in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a horrible decision. And also, I mean, you got to look at guys like Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and Alex Rodriguez, Roger Clemens, who definitely did steroids. And, like they're looking at it and like, well, this guy cheated. I cheated. I belong in the hall too. Here comes the slippery slope. And the guys I grew up watching, like Ken Griffey Jr., who did things the right way, who did things the clean way. Like now you've got guys that he had to compete with, and they're probably looking at it like, well, throw my hat in the ring. And I am anti Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire. Like, those guys do not belong in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I hear you. Although, just for McGuire specifically, so McGuire admitted he did PEDs and apologized. So I think I have more leniency for a guy like McGuire than I do for Bonds and Clemens, who just denied it. And, Bonds made like a guy go to jail for like 2 years so he didn't have to testify against him. And like Roger Clemens threw his quote-unquote friend under the bus. And like they did some seriously messed up stuff to keep the lie up. McGuire at least admitted and apologized. And I'm not saying I would even necessarily sanction voting him in, but I consider him separate from those guys. Because he didn't have all the just disgusting behavior that those other dudes did. I think he showed remorse and kind of handled it in a much better way. And I think you should consider that, because Pete Rose was way more like a Bonds or Clemens with how he handled afterwards. He denied it, he lied, and then once he got absolutely backed into a corner, he started like selling autographed baseball, saying, "I'm sorry, I bet on," like, God, it was so cringe. Like, oh God, this it makes my skin crawl. Yeah, but like, man, it's so hard to maintain the outrage at guys like Pete Rose when we're getting DraftKings ads and like slammed in our face every time. So like, like, is gambling an unforgivable sin that has no place in baseball? Or is it okay as long as baseball makes money off of it, but not you? Like, I don't know. We're living in really weird times, and I don't like it.
Yeah, maybe in 80 years it becomes a squishy debate.
Yeah.
Just like Shoeless Joe.
It'll be interesting. All right. Well, I think that wraps up our discussion on Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe, and the other 7 men out. What do you think? Do they belong in? Should we forgive? Should it just be a hey, after they're dead thing? We'll deprive them personally of the joy, but they belong in because of their legacy. All valid discussion points. Let us know what you think in the comments.